The Flash is not a good movie. It's just not. And I am absolutely baffled by all the people who are saying that it is. Firstly, I want to address one of the stupidest pieces of feedback I've seen to this movie. There are swaths of people basically saying, the CGI is bad, but the movie is good. I'm sorry, but what does that even mean? Film is a visual medium. Comic books are visual medium. If you're making a comic book film, it should look good. Why are so many people content with comic book movies looking like garbage? If the visuals of the movie are bad, then I can't fathom how you can simply wave that away and be okay with it. This isn't a novel, it's a movie, it's visuals on a screen. When your visuals are this horrendously bad, it doesn't matter how coherent the story is. A few moments here and there of iffy CGI is understandable and unfortunately commonplace in modern blockbusters, but a big issue with this movie is that a majority of its screen time is polluted by visual garbage. To say the CGI is bad is an understatement. And if you're ignoring that aspect when it comes to judging this film, you're being illogical and delusional. Now, this isn't the fault of the VFX artists who worked on this movie. It never is. It's on the studio for saddling the artist with way too much to do in very little time with seemingly very little money. Not only is the CGI terrible, but the visuals in general, such as how the shots are framed, the lighting, the color grading, are all, for the most part, really not good. There is no stylistic substance to this film. It all looks so flat and soulless. There are moments where an obvious reshoot has been spliced into a scene because the character and the environment they are standing in looks fake, very much like the many examples of this happening in the 2017 Justice League movie. The most egregious example of this occurs at the end, and what's even worse is that it's literally the final shot of the film. Barry's hair and face look unnatural and wildly different from how he appeared in the rest of this scene. The environment around him looks fake. This whole shot is lit poorly, and his tooth falls out in some lame attempt at a joke, and even that looks cartoonishly fake. It's a pathetic way to end the film, but it's not too inconsistent with the visual prowess of everything that came before it. It all looks so ugly, like a badly rendered video game. There's an action sequence at the beginning that is so bizarrely bad that it left me baffled as to how this made it through every stage of the process and into the final cut of this film. The idea of opening the film with an action sequence involving Barry saving the day alongside Batman and Wonder Woman with mentions of the Justice League is a good idea, but the action sequence we get is a terribly shot, terribly choreographed, terribly CGI dumb joke of a scene. Of all the ideas for an action sequence, they decided to make it Barry Allen saving a bunch of babies falling out of a hospital. Oh, I guess you could call it a baby shower, haha. Yes, they make that dumb joke in the film, a joke that got exactly 0 laughs in my packed theater. This scene is accompanied by a comically bad score that makes the whole thing feel like a Looney Tunes episode, and the babies are these terrible PS2 asset-looking wax baby abominations. A bunch of pointless, dumb action stuff transpires, and then Wonder Woman shows up, accompanied by her theme song and a pause for applause moment, which, much like her cameo in Shazam 2, feels out of place and poorly done. There's a lasso of truth gag here, where Batman and Barry can't help but reveal some embarrassing truths about themselves. Real creative joke. Haven't seen that one before. Nope, never. Seriously? Recycling jokes is one thing, but to recycle such an unfunny joke from a movie that was a catastrophic failure for the brand, it's just so fucking brain dead. I can't stress enough how terrible this whole scene is, and I can't for the life of me fathom anyone who defends this scene. What is redeemable about it? It's not visually appealing. The score is not good. The action, particularly the way Batman is bouncing around like he weighs 20 pounds, doesn't look good. The comedy doesn't land. Narratively, this does nothing too worthwhile for the story to the point where it could have been cut entirely and replaced with something more meaningful to Barry Allen's story. But no, this is the scene they chose to open their film with. It's baffling, and it sets the tone for what's to come. The rest of this movie is a mess, and when it's coherent, it's a mediocre slog to sit through. The whole film feels like it's written by ChatGPT. It tries to make you empathize with Barry. It tries to make you care about the stakes, but everything is so surface level, lacking in depth, soulless. Take, for example, the relationship between Iris West and Barry in this film. Ask yourself, why is Iris interested in Barry in this film? The actual answer to that question lies outside of this film. The reason Iris West seems to initiate a conversation with Barry in this film is because she seems to have a vague recollection of seeing Barry, quote-unquote, a few years ago. A line that is a clear reference to what happened in Zack Snyder's Justice League, a film that may or may not even be canon to this film. But as for within this film itself, Iris being interested in Barry doesn't make any sense. They speak to each other twice. The first time is an awkward reunion, and the second time ends with Barry acting like he's having a manic breakdown as he rambles on about traveling back in time to fix everything before leaving Iris alone in his apartment. Smooth game, man. Then at the end of the film, she shows up again and they agree, for some reason, to go out on a date with each other. It's a great idea on paper, a Flash movie ending with Barry Allen and Iris West getting together. The issue with this film is Iris West is in the movie for like 2 minutes because this movie prioritizes Michael Keaton's Batman and Supergirl over characters that are actually integral to the Flash. It just does not work. Speaking of Michael Keaton, he is probably the best part of this movie, mainly because every time he is on screen, we are served a reminder of much better films than this one. But as good as he is and as nice as it is to hear the '89 Batman score again, and this time within a context that actually makes sense, the film doesn't do enough with his inclusion to warrant having him in the film. And it's also very clear that he's phoning it in. He's in this movie to sell tickets. He was on all the posters. He was the main sell in the trailers. But in the film, he's just a plot device and a fan service device.
Say the line, Bart!
Let's get nuts.
It works wonders on viewers who love to gobble up nostalgia in any form. But there's a way to make nods to past films without it seeming so forced. A movie came out a couple of weeks before this one that did just that. Aside from one decent heart-to-heart scene between Barry Allen and Keaton's Wayne, Keaton was truly wasted. I really can't for the life of me understand how people can bury their heads in the sand and convince themselves that this film is good and everyone who doesn't like it is just being mean. The criticism isn't in bad faith. I can't imagine batting so hard for a movie that is a soulless piece of corporate schlock. Nothing in this film feels genuine. At times, it is straight up insulting to its viewer. The jokes are so forced. At one point, for no reason whatsoever, Barry Allen says, "Come on, Barbie," and the other Barry Allen says, "Let's go party," and they start fighting. That's the joke. And it's probably in the film because it tested well. That's all this piece of shit is. Just a film that has been tested into the freaking ground, reshot and rejigged to death, all in a pathetic, desperate attempt at pleasing the general audience. There's hardly anything genuine in this film. In fact, I can only think of 2 scenes. The scene at the end of the film where Barry says goodbye to his mother, and the other scene is a conversation between Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne and Barry near the beginning of the film, which I quite liked.
You don't live your past. In your life.
That scene really zeroes in on the message of this film, and Affleck's performance here is genuinely good. But the film's message is this: move on from the past. But this film is so obsessed with the past that it gives us one of the worst, most ghoulish things that I have seen in any DCEU or MCU movie. Towards the end, for no real good reason, we are treated to a bunch of cameos from older iterations of iconic DC characters purely to serve up some lazy nostalgia to the crowd for that sweet, sweet applause. But I just couldn't for the life of me enjoy what I was looking at. We see a CGI version of Christopher Reeve's Superman standing beside a CGI version of Helen Slater's Supergirl. I don't even want to begin on how disrespectful I found it to see a CGI resurrection of a childhood hero, Christopher Reeve's Superman, being used as a pause for applause, nostalgia bait, fan service moment. I also don't want to begin on how they had plenty of other more respectful options to use in this moment that would arguably have got bigger reactions from the crowd. Instead, I'll just point out how fucking terrible it looked. We then see a CGI Nicolas Cage Superman fighting a giant spider. Get it? Because of that one Kevin Smith story about the canceled Superman film and how John Berg wanted him to fight a giant spider in it. I'm sure we all got that right. I'm sure there wasn't a single member of the general audience that was confused to see a CGI Nicolas Cage as Superman. There was also a bunch of other stuff in here, but it's not worth my time or yours. All of these cameos looked like something out of The Sims 3. They looked like terrible mid-journey AI renders. The visuals being so jarringly bad completely ruined any chance of these cameos making me feel anything positive at all. I can't imagine the CGI in this moment or the whole film aging well at all. In fact, it's only been a few days since I've seen it and they've already aged 20 years. And the thing is, the director has come out and said that the CGI was purposely made to look this way. Okay then, if that was your decision, that is in no way a defense of what you put out. It's an indictment on your creative decision-making. This whole fucking film is an indictment on your creative decision-making. The whole film was hamstrung by your shitty stylistic choices. Oh yeah, and Supergirl was in this movie. She's played by an actress who is probably a great fit for Supergirl, but this film gives her literally nothing to do. So I've got literally nothing to say about her other than to say I feel sorry for her. She was saddled with the responsibility of marketing this whole film, basically by herself. And for what? To be in the film only to get unceremoniously killed off and then to probably be axed from the role going forward. Her character had no depth. It felt like she had way more to do, and they neutered her role in the editing suite. In fact, it felt like that with every character. It felt like that with the whole story. General Zod, who, in my opinion, is the best DCEU villain, is in this film, though in this film he is one of the worst DCEU villains. Faye Aura is in this film as well. Remember her? Well, it doesn't matter, because she doesn't say a single word, and her existence is pointless. The whole film was a butchered mess that felt like its only priority was to make money and get a little red tomato next to its name. And good for them, they did it. But that little red dot means nothing in a day and age where it's wholly clear how easy it is to manipulate the discourse and to coerce critics into going easy on your film. And what did you ultimately want from this movie? You wanted to make money to please the audience? Well, how's that fucking going for you?